Hi, I'm Diane Urbans, owner of Urbans Greenhouse in Rudolph, Wisconsin. And we are here today to plant a vertical wall out of a pallet. Now this is a miniature pallet. My husband constructed for me out of larger pallets. So we could do it on a smaller scale so you could see how to do it. You could use a bigger one also. Just for purposes of this video, we're using a smaller one. The tools that I have here are what you would need to have, and that would be the pallet, the weed barrier. We put a double layer on the bottom and the sides of this pallet, and a double layer is because it's thin and it rips easy. So just double it up when you're putting it on there. Also, you need netting. You can buy this at our greenhouse or any hardware store. It's tree netting for like cherry trees or blueberries or things like that so the birds don't get at it. You also need a good soil mix depending on what you're putting in your pallet. And we're going to be putting in succulents in this pallet today. You can also put in herbs, annuals. I've seen a lot of different things used in a vertical wall. So I guess it's up to however you want to do it. I wanted to put in hardy succulents so that I can keep this from year to year. I will be laying this down in my garden and mulching around it for the winter, and that should protect it very nicely for the winter because these are all hardy to zone 3. We also need moss, a stapler. I use a 1/2 inch. You can get different lengths of these staples, and this is probably the thing you need the most of. You need a lot of staples. Scissors, needle nose pliers, utility knife, and a hammer. I've already stapled 3 sides, and I'm going to show you how to staple the other side. I just pull it tight and staple. Like I said, this is actually the hardest part of doing a vertical wall this way because it hurts your hands after a while when you're stapling. Anyway, it does mine. And you want to get a lot of staples in there, enough that this weed barrier is not going to come undone. You're not going to be moving it around a lot once you get it in its place, so it's not essential that it's, you just want to get it done nicely. And I usually don't get my staples in very good because I'm weak, so I pound them in with a hammer to make sure that they're in there all the way. And that's basically how you get your framework for your vertical wall. When you've put your soil in your pallet, make sure you have it in there firmly. It doesn't have to be like you can't move the dirt, but make sure that it is actually pressed in there quite firmly. Now I've already done this part. I've already put the soil in so that you can see what it looks like when you've got your reed barrier and your soil. And the reason I left this open is because some of the directions that I've read on vertical walls is they don't put the netting or the moss on there. You can just plant it like this, but what you have to do then is you have to lay it flat for quite a while so that it gets a good root structure so you can either hang it, or I have mine in my garden, I have it on T-post, just leaned back a little ways so that it actually catches rainwater also. I'm not a very patient gardener, so that's why I want to be able to do it and hang it or place it where I want it to go right away. I don't want to have to wait for months. So otherwise you can do it this way also. It's simpler, but you have to wait. I've already got 3 of our stations netted and mossed. And I'm going to just show you how to do the last one. First, we have to put the moss down. And this just holds in the dirt, just like the netting is going to do, so you can place it right away where you want to put it. And again, I like the angel moss look because it's pretty. Retains moisture. Now you're going to see staples when you first do this. Don't worry about the staples because they'll be hidden once you plant it and the plants start to grow. So now you want to take your staple gun again and staple your netting down. Just get it on there secure enough because it's not going anywhere once you place it in your garden. You want to go along the edges here. Kind of double up that netting so you make sure that you get netting in there. Every so often, just throw a staple in there. A lot of times, like that staple didn't go in there very good. That's why you have a needle nose pliers out here. So you can take those that didn't do very well out and redo it. I either bunch up the netting or I leave it lay flat and then I cut off the excess. So you don't have to be too concerned about the netting. If you don't want some of the netting there, you just take a scissors and cut it off. Herbs are fun to put in a vertical wall because you can put them on your deck. You could hang this right on your wall of your house if you wanted to. And that way they're right there at your disposal for your eating pleasures. Then you take your hammer, pound them in. Then you want to check off any excess netting. Not much on that side, so we don't have to worry about that. And there's really not that much down here that'll be seen after your plants grow. Now the fun part comes. You get to plant. After you've hurt your hand trying to get all those staples in there, then you get to plant. Now I've just got a few different sedums and hens and chicks. To plant. And I'm going to try and plant 1, 2, 3 up here on the top. You just want to make a little hole in there so that you can get your plant in. And I'm going to start with my blue sedum. What we're going to do with this, I'm not going to put this whole plant right in that spot. You could. It would make it fuller faster. But I'm going to just pull it apart. It would be more economical for people to do it that way because otherwise you'd be spending an awful lot of money on one pallet. But it would be done faster, and that's an option too. And then you want to pull off that excess dirt because you have to get it in kind of a small spot. If your hole isn't big enough, you make it bigger. It's not really going to go anywhere once it's in there because you have your netting on there. And you have your moss in there. Unless a tornado came along and ripped it apart, but then it wouldn't matter what you did. Put in a little extra moss in that cavity hole where you put your root in. Kind of pack it in there a little bit. I sort of like the sedums on the side, only because they could spread out like that and go over the side, and that I think would look really cool. Where your hens and chicks are going to mound more than they're going to spread. Because a pallet is kind of a blocky thing, it's kind of big and bulky. I went with a little bit bigger hens and chicks because, well, first of all, I'm impatient and I want it full fast now. So I'm going to take all these little guys that come off the sides, can be put in here also separately. They don't even need a root to grow. All they need is to be stuck in the dirt. So when this gets overgrown, say within, probably wouldn't in 1 year, but the next year when it's growing, you want to thin them out a little bit. You want to take some of the babies and just thin it out. He's not going in very good. There. That's better. I'm going to do something totally opposite of what I set up here with the sedums. I'm going to put the sedum down here because these are going to spread out. This is going to get bunchier, and this I want to spread out again. And I picked out this really pretty brown sedum because I really, really like it, and I love the color of the flower on there. All sedums flower. Had this done for a while, and the moss is kind of dry. I probably should have hydrated it before I started, but we'll be watering it when we're done with it also, and fertilizing to get those roots established. And I pull on them a little bit, make sure they're in there good. If your hens and chicks or your sedums, because I'm going to put one of these little babies in here, the ones that we took off of that other plant, if this overcrowds that, you take a scissors and you trim at it. Don't let one overcrowd the other, because it'll just be pretty if you can see all of them. I like this purple next to that because it just looks good together. And you just want to take off that excess dirt because you really don't need it. And you can't get it in the hole with it. This one wasn't quite as big and as full as that one, so I'm going to just use the whole plant in one spot. There's literally thousands of sedums. I mean, we carry a very big line of sedums. I think I just want one more sedum on the bottom, because with this coming down and this coming down, I think the yellow will be very pretty in the center of this last rail, I guess. Okay, and always remember to water very well with a good fertilizer after you rip these plants apart. They need that for transplanting, for their roots to dig in and do better. And then we have a finished vertical wall that you can hang or place in your garden on a rod. to tip it back. Possibilities are endless.